Did you know that ChatGPT actually released a competing version called ChatGPT Work? I know, not the most clever name. And it sits right between ChatGPT and Codex, which is OpenAI's coding harness. So in an attempt to compare both, I'm going to show you 8 different ways that you can use ChatGPT Work today. Now, the first use case I'm going to talk about is the ability to extract from 2 different files into a singular, unique report. In this example, I've got essentially 2 reports. My sales rep reports, which means who sold what, and then I've got another dashboard or another Excel spreadsheet that tells me our commission rules. And all I told GPT to do was I want you to create 2 different files, one of them with my reports, with how much people sold, and the other one with the commissions. And then the final output needs to be a daily or weekly or monthly, essentially reconciliation that takes how much they sold versus the commissions to give me how much do I need to pay every person on my team. Now in this case, I can see here, this is the sales performance. I can see monthly target, eligible revenue, manual adjustment, etc. Now, if I open up my Finder, which is where this project lives within ChatGPT Work, I can see that it created these 2 spreadsheets, one of them with commissions and the other one with the payout demos. That's the output. And I have commission rules here. I have direct payouts as well. So it took screenshots. Now, the important piece is that here are the 2 starting spreadsheets. You've got the sales performance one as well as the commissions one. Now, the important one here, the new one, so to speak, is the director payout one. Imagine you have 2 different sources of information and you want one that's unique for you. I can now have this run as many times as I want or as often as I want. And it'll tell me right here exactly how much I need to pay each individual based on those 2 separate files. It even created me a chart. Now I could go and I could expand this. I can make this look exactly how I want. I could connect it to my email to send this to me every 2 weeks, for example. But I just want to show you the power of being able to take 2 separate sources and combine them into a singular one while customizing it to what you need. Now the second use case is going to be a competitive reach or brief. So let's pretend that I have a bakery in Orlando and I want to know what are the other bakeries around me doing, who's celebrating what top holidays, what discounts are they offering, for what reason. Is there anything that I can inspire myself from? Because it's always a good idea to just keep an eye on the people around you. Is there any holiday that they're not preparing for that I could potentially use as a marketing tactic to fill the gap? So the way you can do that with ChatGPT Work, all I gotta do is create a brand new scheduled task. Now in this case, I give it a prompt which was super simple, which was prepare a concise weekly competitive intelligence brief on bakeries in Orlando. I'm even gonna run it now just to get a feel for how it performs. And while that's happening, let's go see our currently active chats. And then I said track 8 to 12 locally relevant bakery competitors, prioritizing independent bakeries and notable local chains in Orlando and nearby neighborhoods, research official websites, publicly accessible socials, etc. Now, you don't have to use this obviously for bakeries, but keeping an eye on what the people around you are doing can be, it's a really easy way to either jump on the bandwagon or actually have a contrarian take on maybe something that they're not doing. So I'm gonna let this run and we'll come back to it. And after pressing run now, worked for about 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and this is what I can see. So it says, because this is the first run, comparisons are against recent index activity rather than previous brief fare. Gideon made the week's biggest move. New cereal concept, 6 Ravens began operating at Disney Springs around August 3rd. The official menu offers 6 $10.99 filled coffins, breakfast versions, sides, and local beer. Interesting. And then expansion is accelerating. The Glass Knife now offers 2 in approximate locations. Light on the Sugar is promoting its 4th shop in Front Lakes. Interesting. Value promotions are underused. 7 bites, $6 to $13, 7 flavor bundles, and then August 9, leaving room for another bakery to own accessible breakfast or afternoon offer. Cool. And yeah, now this is obviously for bakeries, but in whatever industry you're in, you probably have other people that are in that industry. So having this kind of like brief, I'll probably shorten a little bit just to make it a little easier to read, let's say in your morning emails, but this is just a good way to keep a lay of the land on what's currently happening, who's doing what. Now the third use case I want to talk about, this is probably the ones I use the most. I spend a lot of my time in meetings, talking to people, etc. And during those meetings, I say a lot of things. This has to get done. This has been updated. I'm going to talk to this person. I'm going to send this email. I'm going to read this text. I'm going to update this vendor, whatever the case is. It's a lot of work. And now I have note takers, Fathoms, Firefly, etc. There's a cool thing in ChatGPT Work, which is called a plugin. This also works with ChatGPT, but a plugin is essentially another software that I can plug into ChatGPT to perform a specific action. Now, in this case, there's a bunch of different plugins. You got computer use, you got spreadsheets, presentation, Google Chrome, Gmail. The one I'm interested in though is I use Fathom, right? So I just search up Fathom and I can see here, I can now tell ChatGPT to get my Fathom meetings for me. So in this example, I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to tell ChatGPT, I want you to take a look on my latest meeting on Fathom and tell me what it was about, tell me what promises that I make, tell me what blockers do we have so that I can resolve them. And now by pressing enter, it's now going to go into Fathom, figure out what the last meeting was and bring that data back in so I can then act on it. Now the last meeting I had was about thumbnail generation, and this is essentially the notes from that meeting, current blockers, stuff like that. Now this is super helpful because I don't really need to go into Fathom anymore. Before, the entire workflow was go into Fathom, take transcript, put it into Claude, tell Claude, give me actions, take the actions, put it in the email. Gmail. Now, if you connect Fathom and Gmail, you can have one workflow, which is giving the blockers, giving what we promised in the same conversation. Okay, now draft this email to these people, and I never have to leave the ChatGPT screen. And that's if I just do it manually. There's nothing stopping me from having a recurring event that happens every night or every week, ideally every night, that says, take a look at today's meetings, tell me who I need to talk to or who I need to send what to, and just make it a scheduled task as well. This is specifically for Fathom because that's what I use. But if I go back into plugins, I believe Fireflies is in here as well. So if you use that, I wonder if Meet's in here. Google Meet. Doesn't look like Google Meet's in here. But if you use Microsoft Teams, that's in here. So I wonder if Zoom, yeah, even Zoom is in here. So hopefully that provides a bit of clarity around how to make the most of your meetings. Number 4 on this list is more of a fun one. So we take a lot of trips, and trying to find the best deals every time can be a little exhausting. So what I told ChatGPT Work to do is that every week, so I've been wanting to go to South America for a while, and I essentially told ChatGPT, look, I want you every week run a search for that week's best deals. Now, do not inform me of anything if the rates is less than 50% off. If it's not that, then I don't really want to know about it. Other thing I need to do. So in this case, it says the prompt is search the web for genuinely exceptional travel deals in South America, including hotels, resorts, lodges, cruises, etc. Include flight deals only when the origin, destination, dates, and total fares are explicit. And if I press run now, let's see what it comes up with. And about 3 minutes later, this is what we got back. So it says one verified deal this week, Zafiro luxury Amazon cruise, 7 days or 8 days, 7 nights, 8,000 for 2 adults. Cool. And apparently this is a really good deal. No other deal passes 50% verification threshold this week. So I use this because I like to go to places that I really haven't seen before. And by looking for good deals, it just opens doors. If I have to search for it myself, I'm going to go to cities that I know, right? The big ones, Toronto, New York, Dubai, whatever. But by making it based off of deals, sometimes you'll find places like Aruba or, I don't know, Thailand or something super, at least to me, very far that I would never think of without having this deal finder. Now, the next use case is going to be connecting once again to a different software using a plugin. But this time, instead of connecting to Fathom, we're going to be connecting to ClickUp, which is a task management software. So I was going to ChatGPT, and then I'm going to click on plugins again. And the plugin we're going to use this time is going to be called ClickUp. Now, ClickUp, if you haven't used it or if you don't know what it is, it's very similar to Asana or Monday. Essentially is a project management software. So what I'm going to tell it to do is I'm going to go into this specific task. Believe it or not, I believe it's waiting. I'm going to go into my scheduled tasks, and I'm going to see a daily ClickUp team report. So essentially what this is I told ChatGPT Work, I want you to create today's team status report using ClickUp as a sole source of truth. Review relevant ClickUp tasks and activities since the previous reports. I'm the person on run now. Let's see what happens. The entire idea here is previous use cases were centered around yourself as the main user. However, whether you're sharing with this with clients, with other employees, with anybody else, your tasks are not necessarily the only ones that you need to report on. So by having this connected directly into ClickUp, I can just go and bring what everybody else is working on, comments, meetings, tasks that everybody has done, to have one source of truth as to what's been done, what we're working on, and one of the blockers. So I'm going to give this a minute or two to run, and we'll see what it comes back with. Now, give me an error saying something about, says unable to re-verify ClickUp. So what I'm going to do just to solve this is I'm going to go into ClickUp. I can want to reinstall it. I'm going to open up a page that looks like this. This is our Prompt Advisor workspace. It's going to ask me to select a workspace, which I just did, connect it, and then I'm going to open ChatGPT back up again. And this is going to happen, by the way, with every plugin that you connect. And then if I rerun this scheduled one, it should now be able to actually run this report. Let me close, let's see here, ClickUp right now. Let's see if it can read anything from ClickUp. So it took a few back and forth because it couldn't see the plugin. And if that happens to you, all you have to do is just close Codex or close ChatGPT Work and just reopen it. And I now know that I have access to it because I can see it using the plugin itself, which is great. So we're going to see there's nothing much in this project. There's only one singular task right here that says a task done. I had it somewhere in here. So I'm going to see what GPT Work says about this. Beautiful. About a minute later, it found the one task that I had put as that is done. What's cool is if I just click on it, it'll take me to that one task that I put as done. And you can have this run every day, every 6 hours, whenever you want to get this current status of your project. Now, where this gets really powerful is in the next workflow I'm about to show you, which is how you then make this available so that anybody can see the status of a specific project. If you've been working with clients or if you work with other team members, it can be really difficult to show where the product is at without bringing them into your project management software, which is an entire other learning curve that they're going to have to go through. The solution to that is the next use case, which is the following: a public ClickUp page. What this is essentially if you've used Claude, there's something called public artifacts. Think of it like a page that ChatGPT creates for you that anybody can see. In this case, it says, because here's how things are moving along. Now, obviously, there wasn't much in my ClickUp for this to show, but I'm going to say refresh using ClickUp's plugin. I'm going to give it a minute. It's going to go back into ClickUp and then pull the correct data. But now if I open this page up, let's say in a different browser, I can share specifically with my clients. I don't have to worry about anybody else or having to send them an invite. And I would keep the surface level enough where they can see what we're working on without the individual tasks. And now, as you see here, because it says search, I know it went back into the plugin. It's now pulling more data in to refresh this. I'm not exactly sure why it made me like this PDF type thing. It seemed a little weird, but the whole point there, I can now share this as a shareable link for whoever wants to see the current status of this project. And obviously, like with everything else, I could put this on a reoccurring task to go into ClickUp every 24 hours, pull out the done tasks, and then see under what pillars do those tasks fall, and then just share those. Now, let's keep going with one more plugin. This one is actually going to be for the Notes app. I'm going to click on New Chat, and then I'm going to say, I want you to take a look at my last meeting, and I want you to go into Fathom, and then I want you to take whatever promises I made and put them on my Notes app. Now, for this to work, we're going to want to install one more plugin, which is going to be the computer use plugin. What that means is I will be able, or ChatGPT will be able to go into apps on my computer and write notes. In this case, let's say I want to use the Notes app. I'm now, because I have the plugin installed, I'm going to go into the chat that I was in, and I'm going to tell it use computer use, and then it'll use two different plugins. Firstly, it's going to be to Fathom, and then secondly, is going to be to use the Notes app. There is a Fathom plugin. You do not need to use computer use for Fathom, and you also have the plugin for the apps itself. I'm not sure it's the right name. Yeah, computer use. Last but not least, the final skill I want to talk about, or the final use case I want to talk about, is actually a skill. So the same way that Claude has skills, which are essentially repeatable prompts that get called in when it's appropriate, ChatGPT Work also has those same skills. So let's say that you send an email every week to your manager with the same 4 things, right? I'm going to pretend like I've got wins, metrics, blockers, and what we're working on next week. I'm going to tell ChatGPT, I want you to create me a skill where I can essentially just start word vomiting everything we're working on, and I want you to go into ClickUp and bring in what we've done this week. I want you to draft an email with these 4 things: wins, metrics, blockers next week, what we're doing next week. I also want to keep in mind that this is going to my manager, so don't be too wordy. Focus purely on what they would want to know. Do not send anything without my approval. I'm going to just let my voice dictation app use that and press enter, and then I'm just going to wait for the skill to get created. You can now see that it's using the skill creator skill, and it says you didn't specify location, so I'm following the default by placing it in your personal Codex skills folder where it can be discovered automatically. Beautiful. And we now have a weekly manager update skill. Cool. Here's what it's going to do. It'll create or capture unstructured notes, review relevant ClickUp activities, etc. So let's try it. So this week, what we worked on was we had some PRs go through. I hired 2 people. I fired 1 person. That press release that we wanted to work on has also been approved, and I need their signature on the new budget that we want for the specific software that we want to buy. And now I'm just going to let this do its thing, and I'll come back to it once it's drafted. And you can see here that's actually looking through my ClickUp connections to see what it's working on. And now here's that email draft that I got. Hi, here are the wins, metrics, blockers next week. Now what's cool about this is if I use the plugin for Gmail, I could then just tell this, hey, look, send this to this person, and I'm done. So those are a bunch of different skills and use cases that you can use for ChatGPT Work today. There's a lot more to go into, obviously, and you can see that a lot of these revolve around the ability to have tasks that are reoccurring. Now, if there's any skills or any use cases that you've been using that I should have covered, please let me know below. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Now, if you've watched this far and you're serious about learning AI, we run one of the biggest AI communities on School with over 1,400 members who learn from us every single day. I will see you in that group. Thank you for watching.